Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back in with you guys for another show, for another episode of our tactical breakdown series, the show in which we break down analytically and statistically the players that are being linked to the Arsenal and give you guys all the info that you could possibly want regarding these players. Now, today's video, I never expected to really cover this player, but he has cropped up in the news recently, both in England and in Italy, as our Italian expert is going to tell you in just a moment. And that's Milik of Napoli. Now, the Polish forward has been sort of on my radar as someone who's done okay in Italy and become basically a very decent striker. And he's still only 26 years of age, which surprised me a lot when I went and did a little bit of research on him. But I didn't really expect him to be the type of striker that was linked to Arsenal, especially when you consider the type of strikers that we have. And he reminds me more of an Olivier Giroud-esque type. And that, I mean, that's very lazy analytics, really, when you just think he's a taller striker. He must be like Olivier Giroud. So I know, forgive me for that laziness, but it's just where my mind goes when you think of what we've got with the pacey, technical type of forwards that we've got at the moment. So that's probably where my head's at regarding Milik, just from a first look standpoint. But to go into a bit more depth about this, of course, what we like to do on the show is get the experts on, and today is no different. And as always, when we look at someone from Italy, it's an absolute pleasure to have Mr. Richard Hall back on from the Gentleman Ultra and Football Italia. So make sure you go and check him out. All of his links, of course, will be in the description. But listen to Rich and tell us what you can tell us effectively about someone that I just described as Olivier Giroud, which is probably massively underplaying him. But Rich, take it away, son.
So, what about Arkadiusz Milik to Arsenal? Quite an interesting rumour that's been doing the rounds both in the UK and in Italy, and there is some substance behind it. I mean, even as near as yesterday, there's a report in a newspaper in Italy called Il Mattino, where it's already talking that Napoli are already looking for the successor for Milik, because it looks as though he might move away, as we've mentioned now, to the Premier League and specifically Arsenal. It says here that their search has been looking towards Lille's Vitor Oisham, who potentially could replace Milik in that centre-forward role. Now, the reason that Milik is potentially leaving Napoli is that he sees that at 26 years old, he's got a chance of another big move in him, and it's really down to money, as these things always are. He's got 1 year left on his contract and therefore isn't looking like he's going to sign, which has annoyed Napoli president, the notorious De Laurentiis, who has said, okay, well, maybe this is the time we need to cash in on him. Now, according to Il Mattino, the problem with this move that maybe could be the stumbling block, could we say, is that at the moment it says that it looks like the price tag in itself could be around 55 million, maybe 45 million. And obviously Napoli are going to try and get as much as they can for their Polish centre forward. And it's whether Arsenal could meet that criteria. Now, to be fair, if it was down at 45 million, you've got to say that Milik looks like an absolute steal. Again, he's 26 years old. The centre forward, whilst not, he's obviously had a few injury problems at Napoli, and has probably curtailed him a little bit. I think he could be a lot more prolific if he got a good run in the squad. This season in particular, one of his better seasons. In 14 league games, he scored 9 goals. And was getting a bit more of a run in the team. Now, what kind of player is he? He's fantastic, really. He's a sense of, he's very versatile up front. He can play as a centre forward, as a target man. He's good in the air, got an excellent shot, can get a ball quickly out from underneath his feet. He's pacey for the size of him as well, and he's an excellent asset to any side. As I said before, that his inconsistency has been down to more of the fact of his injury at the wrong time. But for that sort of money, I don't think he's a risk at all. I think he's a player who could really, with the amount of chances that a team like Arsenal create, just like with Napoli in some respects, you know, it's a quick, free-flowing game. I think he would be able to adapt to that as well. He's already proved himself in Italy. He's proven himself in Holland as well before that when he was with Ajax. And, you know, this is a kind of player who I think that you could potentially rely on him in a forward line. I think in some respects, if you got more of a centre stage, it would work. Napoli have sort of changed it around a bit because they've also had Dries Mertens, and Dries Mertens, who's having he's been having some of the best seasons of his life in his latter years, playing almost like as a false nine. And so Milik has often been brought on as a separate option when Napoli just changed it up a bit and brought him on a bit further forward up the pitch. So there's been a lot of teams looking at him in the past. I mean, if we look only last season, he was linked heavily with Juventus. So he's a player who's obviously on a lot of teams' radars. And this going into his final year of the contract, where they could get him for a lot less, would be worthwhile. Now, the other part of the other thing with this with Dries Mertens is that, sorry, not with Dries Mertens, with Arkadiusz Milik, is that I think that he does see this next move, as I mentioned earlier on, it's his last big move. And with Arsenal and themselves, this also heavily, Lacazette has been linked, of course, with Inter as soon as yesterday. That was in Gazzetta dello Sport, saying that he could potentially be one of the replacements if Lautaro Martinez then moved out to Barcelona, as is expected. So the whole merry-go-round does seem as though it could go ahead. I'm not saying you're going to lose Lacazette, but again, Milik would be an ample replacement for him. So any problems with Milik? Not too many, really. I think that injury-free, Arsenal would get a striker who, at that price, would be very capable, strong enough, fast enough, all the assets for the Premier League. But actually, there is one problem, a big problem. Actually, now I've come to think about it, he's a Manchester United fan.
Well, there you go. Really interesting stuff, actually, that Rich rates Milik as highly as he does. £45 million as a fair fee for someone that I genuinely wouldn't have ever considered being as an Arsenal target before today. So maybe I have been downplaying the Polish striker. But I'm really interested to know what you guys think in the comment section below. So please do leave those comments. Now, it's important now that we look at Milik statistically, and who knows, as I like to do with these videos, I like to collect the statistics, put them together, look at them with you, experience them for the first time, sort of as I am too, and then give a reaction at the end. So let's go through those stats and see what we think. We start off with our trusty heat map, which you can see on the screen right now. Now you can tell that this guy doesn't move loads. He's a target man. It's from what it looks like. He's a target man. He likes being in the box. He likes being a poacher. And his most intense areas of the pitch are 1, in the box, and 2, the centre circle. So if that tells you much more than you need to know about the type of striker that Milik is, he's not going to give you loads of a variety of movement across the pitch. Movement in terms of creating space for himself in the middle, yes, but not necessarily across the pitch. He's not going to be linking play up here, there and everywhere. That's just not what I'm taking from that. Let's have a look then at his attacking stats, which of course are really important for those strikers. 12 goals so far this season and no assists. So that creative thing we were talking about a second ago, yes, it doesn't seem like he's the type that when he gets the ball, he looks for someone else. 12 goals though is a fairly decent return. In fact, it was 0.66 goals per game, which is over 1 in every 2. So that's fairly good for a striker, especially when you're playing in a Serie A side like Napoli this season, who haven't been the best, it's fair to say. Shots on target, 33 shots in a game. Wow, imagine that. 3.33 shots per game with a 42% accuracy is okay. It's not lethal, but it's decent. He's not taking too many shots, though, it's fair to say, for a striker, for a team like Napoli that usually dominate possession and create a hell of a lot of chances. Dribbles, 1.69, 35.5% accuracy. He's not technical. It's not the type of style of player that he is. Offensive duels compared to those that he wins. 29% win rate, and he's getting involved with nearly 6 of those in each game. He's not doing too much to win those offensive duels, which is an interesting one. Touching the penalty area, though, 4.75, which is high. He likes to get on the ball in the box, as we talked about him. I wouldn't call him a fox in the box. I'd more talk about him being a bit of a tree in the box, maybe. And he's growing in that D area and obviously in the box as well, and that leads to him receiving quite a high amount of chances and touches there. So if we look at progressive runs and fouls suffered, low. Fouls suffered is quite high for someone that I considered not very technical. Then we look on to the passing stats, which I'm going to, before I even look at them, I'm going to imagine they're going to be quite low in terms of creativity. Passes, 20.6 in each game is very, very low, but he is a striker, so he's not on the ball all the time. And an 86.5% pass rate is okay. He's actually pretty decent for a striker. Long passes not going to be part of a striker's game. Through passes, very low. Crosses, very, very low. Passings, the final third, very low, even though they're a decent accuracy at 76.7. Passings, the penalty area, very low. I mean, you're starting to see where this is going now. Received passes, 19.45, so he does get into the game a fair amount when he plays. Forward-backward passes ratio is always going to be negative for a striker because when they do pass it, it is usually backwards, seeing as they're the most forward player up the pitch. So there's passing stats. Let's have a look finally onto those defensive statistics. which I really, really enjoy looking at, it's fair to say, for strikers, to see how much they get stuck in. Defensive duels, 2.62 in each game is okay, but a 60.4% win rate is really, really good. I like that from a striker. Aerial duels is a tall guy, but he wins less than 50% of those aerial duels. Yes, he is up against some really good centre-backs in Italy, I get that. But still, for someone whose main aim is really in the air, aerial duels, I would like to see that a bit higher. Loose ball duels, 3.22, 25.4%. That's quite low as well. Sliding tackles, 0.44. Interceptions, 1.37. Now, the losses to recoveries is very low. But you usually see this sort of negative ratio on a striker, but it is incredibly low. 8.36 to a 1.69 is a massive difference. And what's really weird is that 29.4% of losses in your own half for a striker is quite high, which really sort of concerns me as well. Clearances, fouls and yellow cards are low, and red cards he hasn't received any. So there you go in terms of stats. He's a really odd striker. It's fair to, I don't think I'd be going out there and saying that £45 million, yes, go and get this guy. It doesn't inspire me. If you think of some of the other players, I'd like Arsenal, if we're going to go for a forward player, to target someone like Memphis Depay, who's been at Lyon and done really, really well. Yes, he's received a massive injury so far this season, and of course the French season is now over. But that's the type of player that I would have liked Arsenal to go for. Less so someone in the characteristical profile of Milik. But that's just my thoughts. I'm really interested to know what you guys think, though, of course, in our comment section below. So let me know if you think I'm talking absolute rubbish, which I take on the chin every time, as long as we're respectful. And let me know if you actually agree with me. Do you think Milik's the type of guy that we should go for? Because I personally don't. Massive thank you again to Rich for helping us out with today's show. We'll see you again very, very soon at the weekend for the Tactical Breakdown podcast. Which is going to be with James Rowe. There's going to be a Dutch feel about this one, talking about Orkan Kokcu. Of course, if you want to know a lot more about Kokcu already, we've actually already done a tactical breakdown on the young Turkish lad from Feyenoord, so make sure you do go and check that out. We'll see you again very, very soon. Make sure you drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and leave a click on that bell button so you can get notified whenever we go live or drop a show. See you again very, very soon, and as always, up the Arsenal.